Let's go back to South Africa in the 1980s. Nelson Mandela had been imprisoned for being a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary and political leader. Now fast forward to 1990, when he was unconditionally released from prison. 4 years after that, he would become South Africa's first black head of state, serving from 1994 to 1999. In December of 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away at the age of 95. However, this isn't exactly how some people remember these events happening. Fiona Brum was one such person. She remembers the events very differently. Fiona and countless others remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. There are other memory discrepancies, but the Nelson Mandela event became the catalyst for a movement that would soon become known as the Mandela Effect. Now, the Mandela Effect describes a situation in which a person or group of people have different memories of an event. Grab some coffee, sit back, because we're diving deep. Science versus conspiracy, talk the Mandela Effect over coffee. We'll be right back. Okay, so what do you think? The Mandela Effect.
You mean the Mengele Effect?
The Mengele Effect. No, the Mandela Effect.
It's the Mengele Effect. Okay, for those of you who don't know why I'm doing this bit, go check out Season 11, Episode 4 of The X-Files. It's called The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat. And it is all about the Mandela Effect.
I thought it was the Mengele Effect.
It's hilarious and interesting. So it's a really, really great episode. What do I actually think about the effect, the phenomenon? I mean, I do believe there's something to it, but what are the causes, I guess, is what I want to know what you think.
Well, one of the causes, okay, so the term was coined in 2009. So one of the theories is that the Large Hadron Collider, which started in 2008.
Hadron.
Hadron? What did I say?
Hadron. You said hedron.
Hadron.
Yep.
LHC. Just go with that. The LHC started up in 2008. In 2009, people start having these mismemory issues.
Only in 2009 people started having memory issues? I think you're remembering that human history incorrectly.
Okay, so just let me start at the end and work backwards for a second here. So bear with me. So in 2008, when the LHC was first fired up, one of the consequences was that it actually ripped a hole in our space-time continuum, or punched a hole into a parallel universe where our realities kind of merged together and created this ripple effect.
But if it's creating a so-called ripple in time,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't that mean it's messing with time, not our perception of reality?
Well, what they're saying is that there's a ripple effect which caused kind of ripples and openings in parallel universes. The parallel universes that are right next to ours and bumping into ours.
It's not a parallel universe. Okay, again, you have to watch this episode of The X-Files. They get so mad at Mulder. It's hilarious. Okay.
But it is all about parallel universes.
It is.
And colliding into our reality and switching places with, not necessarily switching places, but overlapping parallel universes with things that are slightly different than what they are here.
So supposedly these little tears in time
Mm-hmm.
are also allowing like little bits of space, like little bits of alternate universes to cross over and change things.
Yes, and since it's kind of rippling, like when you throw a stone in the water and
Yep.
it creates the ripple effect, everything doesn't happen all at once.
Okay.
So that's why kind of one of the first things was Nelson Mandela. And then it's kind of rippling back in time to like the Forrest Gump and
But
Looney
wait,
Tunes
no,
and
no, 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 no. Why would it doesn't mean that Nelson Mandela would be the first thing.
no,
Like
but that
that
was one of the first, not necessarily the
she just
first thing.
because she coined the term
No, I know, but
doesn't mean that was the first thing.
no, I know, but that's one of the first things that became popular because she started talking about Nelson Mandela, and then other people were like, "Hey, yeah, she's right," and then other people were, "No, he he, he didn't die in the '80s while he was in prison." So that was like one of
That
the
was just people confusing him with Biko, Stephen Biko. That's all it is.
who's Stephen Biko?
Really?
Yeah,
Are you kidding?
who's Stephen
Peter
Biko?
Gabriel even made a song about him. Biko, 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 Biko. He was another anti-apartheid leader, but he actually died in prison. So she just got the two of them confused.
Or is the Biko a ripple in time too?
No, he's actually a person,
Oh, I don't doubt that he's not a person.
and he was another.
Hold on. Fucking
Oh,
motorcycles. I'm gonna cut it out. Don't worry.
okay.
Okay.
So Stephen Biko was another anti-apartheid activist,
Okay.
also South African,
Mm-hmm.
also black,
Mm-hmm.
was also imprisoned
Mm-hmm.
for his beliefs, but unlike Nelson Mandela, Biko actually died in prison.
Okay. So even if those two were confused, that still doesn't explain the countless people that remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison. Just because they may have some people may have confused one with the other doesn't explain the rest, because a lot of people probably don't know who the other person is.
Well, some people are more apt to suggestion to believe stories than from others, depending on credibility. So I'm gonna talk about like a bunch of different reasons why people make these kind of Mandela effect mistakes. Um, it doesn't mean that it's parallel universes. It doesn't mean it's not either. And folks, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast about parallel universes, we definitely invite you to go back and check it out. And you'll hear me acknowledge that I definitely think that they are a real possibility. I believe in parallel universes because we'd be foolish not to, really, until we have evidence to the contrary. Um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but um,
Okay, so the false memory thing, I know it can probably be explained away through the thing you call science.
the thing you call science.
Um, but at the same time, there, there's a lot of independent people from around the world that remember things differently,
Well, sure.
independent of anyone else.
Independent of anyone else?
Well, who don't know or haven't really looked into or heard about the Mandela effect. In general conversation, things come up. I've read stories of people who had no idea what the Mandela effect was, but then at a party or something, they've been chatting with people, and they've gotten into arguments about something being different than what they remember it.
But just because they don't know the term for it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that they're not already experiencing false memories, flawed memories, confabulation, one way or another. It doesn't mean that just because they didn't know the term for it, oh my gosh, it must be the Mandela effect because they've never even heard of it before. So it's not like they were consciously trying to think, oh my goodness, it must be the Mandela effect. Therefore, because they weren't consciously thinking that, then it must be it. That's just kind of circular thinking, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I agree. If you don't know the name of it, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Um, but
No, it
regardless,
doesn't mean it is happening, is what I'm
that
saying.
but I'm saying that it's not happening. Um, but the false memory thing that people are reporting, um, the, it's not everything. It's just certain things.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, the human brain is really complex, and encoding of memory is a very complex process, and a lot can go wrong when you're encoding and retrieving memories.
Hmm.
We don't remember everything that's ever happened to us in our lives. We remember some things
But
incorrectly.
some people do. I forget what that's called.
Um,
But there is a condition that you can remember every little detail
it's
throughout your whole life.
it's very, very rare.
Hmm. But
Pause, because I'm going
pause.
to look up the name of it. Okay.
You got it?
Yeah. So, it's very, very rare. It's actually called hyperthymesia.
Hmm.
So if you think of like amnesia, it's hyperthymesia. Thymesia. They also call it highly superior autobiographical memory. But even these people,
Hmm.
and the term was only coined in like 2006. But even these people who supposedly have hyperthymesia
Hmm.
still don't remember literally everything. They just have a very highly superior memory
But
to
what?
others.
But what if everyone has that capability, but because of a mutation, they're able to be hyper aware and be able to remember things. But what happened? What about? What if everybody has that ability, but most people aren't able to unlock it? My point is that when you see something, it's being encoded and locked into your brain. We just can't necessarily access the correct information when we want to to bring it up.
Well, these folks that have the hyperthymesia, some of them have been found to have enlarged temporal lobes, the caudate nucleus, their hippocampus. So, I mean, they they may have like quote unquote extra brain power. um, so it doesn't mean, but I'm not dismissing your theory because honestly, we've talked about this before in another podcast as well, that we don't use our brains to its full potential, right? So maybe these folks are, maybe, or maybe they do have these enlarged structures that also affect it. But I digress. Like, what it what I'm trying to say is that there are numerous possibilities, and the faulty encoding and retrieval is a very real possibility.
It can't all be faulty memory, can it? One of the quotes that has baffled people for many years now is the scene in Empire Strikes Back between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. When Darth Vader says,
I am your father.
except he never said that. He says,
No, I am your father.
it's amazing how that changed because you see it on in memes and in posters and famous quotes. It's always Luke, I am your father. But that line never happens. Even James Earl Jones, Darth Vader himself, has been misquoted in interviews saying about Luke, I am your father. How does that happen?
Because people asked him to, and it makes people happy.
Why would anyone ask him to repeat a line from a movie that never even happened?
Well, because that's what people enjoy, because they enjoy meshing it together and remembering it that way, because memories are comforting.
Right, but it's completely different. Um, no, I am your father, not Luke, I am your father. It's the same thing like in Star Trek when everybody remembers, or the thing that gets quoted most often is Scotty, beam me up. Nobody ever says that in the entirety of Star Trek. But
So where'd it come from?
Exactly. In some parallel universe, alternate dimension, something, perhaps that was the line. And same with the Star Wars. Luke, I am your father.
You know what too I actually really enjoy hearing that are wrong as well? Um, Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry.
Right.
Like the famous line, people always say, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" And they do it in TV shows. It's been memed like over and over again into many different combinations. But the actual line is he's talking to somebody and he says, "Yeah, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky?" Well, do ya, punk? So like he doesn't even have lucky and punk in the same sentence, but that's what everybody's made it.
Right.
And another one though, another one that really blew me away. Hannibal Lecter never ever says, "Hello, Clarice."
Right, but that's in everything.
Everybody does that,
Yep.
right? So these are examples of people making mistakes. They're just mistakes. Because there is this phenomenon called memory conformity, or like social contagion of memory. Social contagion of memory. So, people who have stronger personalities, people who may have more authority, are seen as more credible and believable and are taken at face value than people who have weaker personalities or weaker memories or less authority. So, what some scientists presume is that this social contagion is responsible for a lot of these so-called Mandela Effect instances.
Right.
There's a lot of societal pressure to respond with social desirability. So if someone's like, no, he said, "Luke, I am your father," and like you really look up to this person and you want to believe them because you want them to think you're cool because you know everything there is to know about Star Wars and they idolize you, then they're going to believe you. So, that could be responsible for some of these things. There's, the whole social conformity of memory explanation for the Oklahoma City bombing.
Right.
When they were looking for the second person that came in to rent the truck, there never was a second person in the office to rent the truck. But two of the three people working there insisted that there was. And the third person just went along with it. And it turns out that second person was never actually in the office renting the truck. Eyewitness accounts of accidents, it's the same thing. It's been well documented.
What are you drinking today?
Oh yeah, this is not coffee. Today it's science versus conspiracy over a pint. So it's actually brought to you, again, not an ad, but it happens to be what, Bob? Sleeman.
Sleeman's today for me. Honey Brown.
Sleeman's Honey Brown.
One of my favorites.
It's a lovely beer. But there's the social and cognitive reinforcement of incorrect memories all the time. And because if either the acquisition and encoding of the memory is flawed or the retrieval of it is flawed,
Mm-hmm.
that's your so-called Mandela effect.
And not parallel universes.
Well, again, I can't say 100% because I have nothing to rule it out. But there was actually a really interesting study done a few years ago where they actually went back through Twitter, 10 years worth of Twitter, and looked at over 100,000 news articles.
Mm-hmm.
And credibility of source didn't seem to matter. So falsehood won out over the truth 70% of the time. People get caught up in things. So, I know I said earlier that sometimes it's because you view the source as credible.
Mm-hmm.
But whether they actually have credibility doesn't matter. It's being caught up in it by those weaker, less authoritative personalities.
Right.
Like all the anti-vaxxers who claim that getting the vaccine gives you COVID and all these other illnesses. There's enough of them. There's enough of them saying it, right? There's enough of them, and they're, all banding together, and it's social reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter that science behind that is not credible. Like their explanation is not credible.
Right. Yeah, I can see how like the mob mentality type of thing
Exactly
plays into it.
Exactly. Yeah.
For something like that, but when you're dealing with a widespread phenomenon like the Mandela Effect, I think we have to look beyond regular science, and yeah, I think there's something else going on.
Well, it's funny because there are a couple that they even mentioned in that episode of the X-Files, and I don't want to give too many away, but like the Berenstain Bears and Shazaam.
Yep.
I could have sworn that both of those were the way that they are ascribed to with the Mandela Effect, not reality. And like I said, the Hello Clarice thing. So I mean, something's definitely going on there.
Yeah, and I like two of my favorites are the life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get from Forrest Gump. He never says that. He says life was like a box of chocolates.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Well, Mama used to always say life was. Like, so the way he, like the intro to the sentence actually puts it in a little bit more context because he says, Mama used to always say life was like a box of chocolates.
But apparently, even on the back of the DVD cover and the VHS cover, it says life is like a box of chocolates.
Really? We have it downstairs. Did you look?
I couldn't find it.
Okay, what's your other favorite?
From Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Oh, I know. That one blows my mind too, I gotta say.
Magic mirror on the wall. Yeah, so something I think definitely is having a ripple effect in our perceived timeline.
So I want to throw this out to you. But also I'll tell you one more that I was blown away by. Fruit of the Loom underwear. There's no cornucopia on it. Like there's no Horn of Plenty that the fruit fall out of. I could have sworn there was.
Yeah, me too.
Did the logo change over time? No.
No.
Supposedly it's always just been the fruit.
Yeah.
But I thought they were falling out of the horn.
Yeah, same with Jif.
Oh, Jiffy. Yeah. That's Jiffy Pop though. That's why.
No,
People got that mistaken. It's Jiffy Pop
Mm-hmm.
and Jif peanut butter. People got them confused. It's not Jiffy peanut butter. Do I say Jiffy peanut butter? All the time. So we'll put a link in the show notes for you folks to see some of the more like kind of famous examples of the Mandela Effect. But one thing I want to throw out there is, well, two things.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's deceiving anybody else on purpose. there's this term called confabulation, where it's people who just don't have enough information to support or refute their claims. If you think at all about someone with Alzheimer's who mistells a story and they really believe that's the way the story happened, but because of their dementia, they've got some of the facts wrong. So that's an extreme example, but I mean, many of us could be guilty of confabulation at any time because we're not perfect. We're not perfect human beings. So I know I make mistakes with my memory all the time.
But what if we're shifting back and forth between different universes, and that's why things, we can swear things are one way when really that they're not?
Well, I don't know about that, but I have another like possible explanation, but you have to also kind of dig deep on this one too. Carl Jung believed in the collective unconscious. And essentially what it says is like we all share memories about things. We all share them because we're all interconnected. So maybe it's not parallel universes. Maybe someone really believed it so much that it then kind of spread to the people around them outwardly, but then subconsciously spread through our collective unconscious. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't prove that either, but I can't disprove that just as much as I can disprove parallel universes.
Right.
So who knows?
No, I think there's something to that too, because people have dreams that are connected with someone else's dreams.
Yeah, that's how he was getting some of that data to build his theory on the collective unconscious.
Right.
So I don't know, folks, what do you think? Have you experienced like a really strong Mandela effect? And I don't mean the mandalas that you like color; those are mandalas.
Or not the Mandalorian either.
No,
Not the Mandalorian effect.
Not the Mandalorian effect, and it's not the Mengele Effect. Not sponsored by the X-Files. But let us know. Let us know in the comments or tweet at us, whatever. We've got all of our links. If you go to our bio, especially on Instagram, our link in bio, you can hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, our website, YouTube, you name it, Reddit, all kinds of things. So let us know. Let us know your examples of the Mandela Effect and what you think is behind it.
Right, and that's it for this week. So join us right here next Friday, where science and conspiracy discuss the weird and bizarre over coffee. Remember, being paranoid is smart. See you next time. If you like the episode, don't forget to subscribe. You can download us on any of the major podcasting platforms. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy Over Coffee was produced by Lethologica. Writing and research was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.